Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for March 4th through the 10th. This week, there are strong themes around working with our consciousness, how we perceive things, how we know the things that we know, and being open to shifting that, to allowing new possibilities to come in, and maybe even questioning the way that we've been perceiving things in the past and going forward. My name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a depth psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I'm so excited to be able to share the astrology of this week with you from a psychological perspective. So, first thing that occurs this week that is sort of the beginning of the week influence is involving Mercury. Mercury will conjunct Neptune, and then it will also change signs. So Mercury is the planet that symbolizes our thought process, our communication, our analytical and linear way of processing information. So the things that we say, how we say them, how we process something at a more intellectual level, how we make sense of things. Mercury is also connected to symbolic ways of processing and symbolic ways of understanding. And even at a deeper level, Mercury is a symbol of how we connect to the other world or to the divine. Mercury is a symbol of the tools that we use to divine or to connect with something that is unseen or unknown or intangible in some way. So, for example, astrology, tarot, omens, dreams, these things are all Mercury territory as well. So, this week, the way that we think about things or our ability to analytically process Mercury is coming into contact with Neptune, which is the symbol of everything that is unknown or ethereal or non-ordinary in nature. Neptune is a symbol of altered states of consciousness, the things that we're aware of at a more subtle level or at a non-intellectual kind of level. So, at a more practical level, Neptune is a symbol of creativity, art, um, being in the flow, these states where we are, where we have these little glimpses of feeling deeply connected in a way that there is less hold of the thinking mind on our awareness. There's more of a sense of being versus doing or thinking when it comes to Neptune. And I have more to say on Neptune in a moment, maybe. So the big thing is that it's kind of this these very different energies, the analytical thought process, communication type mind, and then Neptune, which is about the things and the experiences that are very difficult to put words to. So when these two come together this week, we may have experiences that are that are either confusing or maybe very clarifying, but even in their clarity, it may be difficult to put words to it. There may be more of a feeling of clarity or a sense of clarity without being able to necessarily explain that to someone just quite yet. Um, and primarily for most folks, when we have Mercury conjunct Neptune, whether that is by transit or in your own birth chart, there tends to be this pull, this draw to experiences that are not where we're not in our linear mind, where um, we are lost in thought or daydream, or we're in the flow of something. And so um, this transit is very conducive to any type of meditative work or creative work or mindfulness or things where you're trying to channel something. Uh, which is the nature of creativity, is that you're allowing yourself to be a channel for something to come through. Um, of course, Mercury Neptune is not very helpful when it comes to doing the practical things that we need to do when we do need to, uh, in a more linear fashion, communicate something or figure something out. And so I think this is something to be aware of, that your analytical mind might take a back seat this week, and that's okay. Um, I think that if you have any interest in incorporating creativity or spiritual or mindfulness practices into your life, that is a really, there's a lot of support for you to do that this week. And I think that also those practices, create anything that's creative or meditative or mindful, that can actually be a nice remediation for Mercury Neptune this week. Um, and when I say remediation, I mean uh, art, creativity, mindfulness, or meditative or spiritual practices. These are things that we can do to allow Mercury Neptune to have a place in our lives, so that um, that archetypal energy, so to speak, gets channeled into a creative project or a meditation practice or a ritual practice, versus getting channeled into having difficulty explaining yourself or having difficulty figuring out something that is really important for you to figure out, like if you're, I don't know, working on like your taxes or your budget or something like that. So I think that's a helpful way to think about it, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be um, even uh, intentionally taking a walk, if you can, and not listening to music and just letting your mind ramble and roll around. That also counts, I think. Anything that allows you to loosen the grip of your thinking mind. Now, so that happens first part of the week, and then Mercury will move into, or actually, that's kind of like the majority of the week. Um, I think it may feel more present for us early in the week. And then Mercury will move into Aries. So this has all been happening in the sign of Pisces. Mercury moves from Pisces, where Neptune is, into the sign of Aries on Saturday, the 9th. And so this is a very different experience of Mercury, thought process, analytical mind, because we're going from Neptune and Pisces, which is very spatial, very um, abstract, and really more about being in an experience of something, uh, to Aries, which is about doing and acting from the instincts or the enthusiasm or the passion. Uh, it's a very doing oriented sign, versus Pisces is more about being an experience. And so there's kind of this shift. So I think it might be interesting to see how you feel, especially over the weekend, because we do have Mercury moving into Aries, but also this weekend we have the new moon in Pisces. So we're not done with Pisces, so to speak, when Mercury moves into the sign of Aries. Um, that being said, I think that there may be this sense of being able to think more clearly over the weekend, and then over the next month, as Mercury continues its path through the sign of Aries, again, because it is more about uh, being decisive, taking action, and also Aries is about prioritizing your needs, your preferences, your unique individual beingness. And so I think that for anyone, especially that has been having challenges with taking care of themselves or prioritizing their own needs, or even kind of like, I think, figuring out what your preferences actually are, and sort of, you know, separating out, differentiating what is yours versus someone else's. I think that Mercury in Aries beginning this weekend can bring some support to that process as well. Uh, so so that's the Mercury component. That's the mind, divination, etc. This week we also have Mars in Aquarius making a square to Uranus in Taurus. And so Mars is a symbol of taking physical action, fighting for something, standing up for something, drawing boundaries, um, advocating for yourself or for others. And Uranus is about radically changing a system. Uranus is about innovation. Uranus also has this strong theme of independence and claiming your independence and your autonomy. Sometimes it can, at the extreme level, it can feel like independence at all costs, sort of like unburdening a strong desire to unburden yourself from anything that feels like it is harsh or overly responsible, or like it's holding you back from being your true self in some way. And so that may come up this week, I think, especially because we're talking about Mars, which is um, Mars in Aquarius, which is very much about our experience of advocating for ourselves and doing so in a way that we're advocating for our own unique independent individuality, while also being a part of the group, which is Aquarius. And so mars Mars Uranus, an aspect, especially a square like this, there is a bit of tension. There's a bit of like angsty adolescent kind of vibe to this. And so I think this week it's really important, especially if you're feeling that, if you're noticing that, uh, to ask yourself what you need right now in order to feel like you have a sense of autonomy, like you have a sense of freedom in the situation. How can you express your individuality in a way that does not destroy the system or the situation that you're trying to participate in? And I think that helps us sort of hold, because when we have squares like this, there is a bit of compromise, and it's also kind of like holding the paradox of the energies. In this case, Aquarius, Mars and Aquarius, which is about um, being yourself while also being a part of the group, being challenging the status quo, especially when that is different, than your social conditioning or your social norm. And then Uranus in Taurus, which is also kind of about challenging that societal norm. And it might be the societal norm. It might also be what your norm is, what you have become accustomed to in your life. And for those of you who are having a Uranus transit, where Uranus and Taurus is transiting something in your birth chart, this is going to be especially important for you, because Mars is coming in and sort of like pinging that Uranus button a little bit more. It's bringing in especially an emphasis on boundaries, advocating, standing up for something, and then also how do you do that without destroying the situation that you want to stay within. So that's Uranus, Mars this week. I also want to note Jupiter is in there too. Jupiter is uh, nearby Uranus and Taurus. And so I think Jupiter brings some help to this situation. And Jupiter also is a symbol um, of inclusion and also like social justice and wanting to make sure that things are fair and that there is equality. So I think that there's also kind of this like righteousness uh, theme that I'm feeling in this. And I think, of course, it depends on what's happening in your life and what comes up for you this week, what you're actually feeling. And I think the more that we can stay attuned to what we need versus what we want, what we can ask for, and what is possible for us to receive from the situation. Um, and if we can't get what we need, what we want from a situation, where can we get some variation of that? Whether that is um, a different scenario or giving that to ourselves in the best way that we can. I hope that makes sense. I think yeah, I think Mars Uranus is a bit challenging, and it can make us kind of like there's kind of that angsty, frustrated sort of energy. And I think also knowing that um if you're feeling that, that is information that's telling us that there's something here where um either a boundary has been crossed or a need needs some tending care. And sometimes it's that we cross our own boundaries. It's not like an out there situation, it's an in here situation. And sometimes those, there's like a synergy between those. Um, so I leave that to you to see, how that sits with you and what would be best for you this week as you navigate through these themes. Okay, so sort of like a finale of the week is we have a new moon in Pisces. So the new moon in Pisces is happening on Sunday, the 10th of March. It's exact at 2 a.m. Pacific time at 20 degrees of Pisces. And so new moons are this time of marking an initiation, a new beginning, a the thing about new moons is it's also the culmination of inward focus, like psychologically, archetypally, the the moon the moon symbolizes our maximum point of internal focus at this time. There is no light being reflected by the moon. We literally cannot see the moon when it is a new moon at this time. And this reflects our inward journey, whether we're conscious of it or not. It's this sort of psychological rhythm that we experience over the months. And so there's this thing inside that we connect with each new moon. And sometimes that's conscious, sometimes we know what that is, sometimes we don't really know what that is. Sometimes it's very subtle, sometimes it is more explicit. And so this is a time where this Sunday, where there is something new that we maybe have discovered inside of ourselves. And then over the course of the next month, it will continue to be elaborated and fleshed out in our consciousness, in our conscious awareness. Out in the sky, the moon begins to become more visible. It reflects more and more light. And this is a symbol, this light, of our conscious awareness of the thing, whatever it may be. Now, this being in Pisces, a couple things I want to say about this. So, we look at the sign that the moon is happening in and also where it's happening in your birth chart, too, in relation to what house it's falling in for you, any aspects that it's connecting into in your personal birth chart. And Pisces, as a sign, is about, like we talked about, it's like being in the flow, being in your conscious awareness versus your unconscious awareness. And Pisces is really about tuning in to the unseen energy around us, whether that is the emotions or your intuition or the energy of a room or being in the flow of life. Pisces is a mutable sign and a water sign. So mutable means that the sign has this kind of fluid quality to it. Mutable signs, there's kind of this like paradoxical shapeshifter theme to them where it's like there's a changing, shifting quality to you can't quite pin it down. And I think especially so with the sign of Pisces because it is a mutable sign and then it's also a water sign, which water is one of the elements that is incredibly fluid, but it can also take on many different forms. It can be a solid, it can be a fluid, it can be a gas. I don't know if vapor is different than gas. So it can really take on all of these different shapes and states. And so Pisces has this quality about it that it's like there's this constant shape shifting, there's this constant movement. And so this new moon, there might be themes that come up around that, around how we experience change and fluidity and how we experience the not knowingness of life. Pisces also has themes around faith and trust in the process and surrender. And I think, too, at a psychological level, Pisces is a theme of a symbol of having a flexible mind, a flexible way of approaching things that um, challenges any areas where we have rigidity around something, where we think, okay, it has to be this way or it has to be that way, or we have polarized thinking where something is either all this way or all that way and there's nothing in between. And Pisces really challenges that. It says, well, no, there's lots of different variations and something can be this way and it can be this way even when those ways seem like polar opposites. Pisces helps us to take things as they are, moment to moment. Now, the other components of this new moon are that it's sitting fairly close to Neptune, which adds a Neptunian kind of flair to it. So this new moon is happening at 20 degrees of Pisces. Neptune is at 27 degrees of Pisces. And then we also have Saturn here present in Pisces. Saturn is at 11 degrees of Pisces, so it's a little farther away, but it's still there. It is still exerting its presence. And this is a paradox also because Neptune is a symbol of the things that we cannot tangibly see or really identify. It's a symbol of art, creativity, spirituality, states of consciousness. And then Saturn is everything that we can pin down. It is the structure of reality. It is a symbol of time, mortality, health, limitations, boundaries, challenges. Saturn is a symbol of building confidence over time through experience. Saturn reminds us that we can't take shortcuts to some things and we can't bypass certain things. And so we have these two together here. So this new moon, I think, may also bring up our relationship to wanting to transcend Neptune, wanting to merge with a feeling of feeling free and light and feeling like we are connected with something greater, which is Neptune, and then also the limitations that we experience in life, the very real tangible stuff that is that may be actually very wonderful stuff, like the things like uh, our relationships that we're committed to, the job that we have, the house that we have, the place that we live in. We may love all of these things, and there may also be some challenges there too, or some limitations. Again, that kind of the both and. And I think when we have Saturn Neptune like this, it is um, asking us to hold both. That there is this transcendent kind of quality that we can tap into. There's this magic in dreams that we have or synchronicities that happen. And we can actively connect with that. We can actively, just like falling asleep, you can actively uh, do the things that you know will lead you to fall asleep. And at the end of the day, uh, there are certain restrictions that we have to deal with where sometimes life is hard, and this is Saturn. Uh, so, so yeah, so I'm gonna pull some cards for us. I think that also, I think that how you experience this new moon will also depend on where you're at in your life, like what your actual current situation is, um how much room do you have for Neptune versus Saturn? Do you feel like you maybe have an excess of Neptune energy versus Saturn energy? And that this will sort of, like bring those things to light. As I'm shuffling these cards, I also want to mention our upcoming lunation. So we're moving into eclipse season. So we'll have our next full moon is a lunar eclipse full moon in Libra, and that's happening on Monday, March 25th. And then we'll have our next new moon total solar eclipse in Aries on Monday, April 8th. So we can think about eclipse season as being during Aries season because the north node is in the sign of Aries, south node is in Libra. So eclipse season is from March 19th to April 19th while the sun is in the sign of Aries. And we'll don't worry, we're going to talk more about all of that as we get closer to that time. And it's kind of like we're feeling into anticipating the time when eclipse season comes, which is eclipse season is a time of transition and change, transformation. It's a time where things can very rapidly progress, where things can very rapidly fall away, things can very rapidly come in. And there's kind of like, I think of it as this open doorway where the portals to the other world open, and where there can be this things like chance meetings or new opportunities, or you feel a sense of doneness maybe with a situation. And sometimes it can take us by surprise, but I think also it's kind of like nothing happens in a vacuum. So um, all the things that happen in eclipse season were psychologically leading up to that point. And so I think that's why it's important to mention it now. Okay, so um, I want you to get into a place where you can feel a sense of ease in your body and in your mind. Maybe that is sitting somewhere and relaxing your body, and maybe that's moving. And feel the sensations in your body, feel the sensation of your breath or the sounds around you. Anything in your sensory experience. And as you hear the sound of my voice, you're also relaxing into your heart and any question or inquiry that you have right now. Could simply be wanting some warm support for the week ahead. This is the Wild Unknown Tarot deck by Kim Kranz. First card is the Judgment card. And so the image in this card, there is this mass of what looks like black birds, maybe crows, at the bottom of the card, and they're flying upward toward the top of the card where there is this large white bird that kind of looks like it could be a dove, but it's very giant, like maybe a giant dove. So judgment is a symbol of it's a symbol of our hopes and fears around being seen by the people that we care about, by our loved ones, maybe by our community. And it often is a sign that maybe we feel overly exposed, or like we want to express ourselves, but there's a little hesitation there. It's kind of like, oh, it's very, it's vulnerable to share yourself. In this moment, I'm thinking about one of my favorite quotes from the psychotherapist Marion Woodman, who said, "It's easier for me to try to be better than I am to actually be what I am." And what she meant by that is it's easier for us to be like, yeah, I'm doing these things and I'm improving, and to kind of like bolster ourselves towards improvement versus accepting the way that we are. And I don't always think about that when I'm thinking of this card, but that is coming through in this moment. And so maybe that's something that's happening here. So judgment is also an encouragement to accept ourselves and to be authentic. And it's a reminder that when we do that, we can actually feel more connected to people, that we can actually feel more of like a real, tangible, emotional, we can feel emotional intimacy with people when we actually um, share who we are. And, of course, that doesn't always happen. It really depends. But this card is encouraging you to move towards that, um, and to notice where maybe you don't want to do that and kind of explore that. The second card is the Sun of Cups. In this card, in this deck, the Sun of Cups is, which one is it? It's the Knight of Cups. So in this card, there is this beautiful swan, and it's sitting behind a cup, like a chalice kind of cup. And the chalice cup has this like rainbow. It's like there's a black thing in the cup, but then there's this like rainbow material that's sort of like shooting out of it. So the Knight of Cups is a symbol of emotional maturity, that process of emotional maturity. And I think that, it can be something that happens early on. It can also be something that we're always working on, myself included, that it's this journey towards emotional maturity and emotional security, I think, too. And that really dovetails in with the Judgment card, because in order to feel more comfortable being yourself and exposing yourself with people that are safe for you to do so, there does need to be a bit of like feeling feeling okay with your own emotions and taking responsibility for your own emotions and knowing how to move forward in a way that is um, is honoring your process and your thoughts and feelings. This card to me too just feels very expressive with the rainbow material coming out of the cup, and then the swan is just sort of like it has this very like poised sort of posture to it where it's just like, yes, this is happening. I am expressing myself. That's kind of the feeling that I get from this. Um, and then the last card, the third card, is the Father of Cups. So very interesting. Two cups and two court cards. Father of Cups is the King of Cups. And in this card, there is what looks like a black swan with a like very bright red orange beak. And then there's one cup that's sort of like hovering above it at the top of the card. Um, what I think is really interesting is it feels like the Son of Cups is kind of like the beginning of the journey of emotional maturity, emotional awareness, working with our own interpersonal dynamics inside of ourselves. And then the Father of Cups or the King of Cups is like the culmination of that process where there is more of a sense of security. And I'm also thinking about themes of self-cohesion where we feel like we have a good sense of ourselves, like we feel um, like we know who we are. I think that's kind of like a big theme in here too with the Son of Cups that maybe this is just kind of coming together for me now in this moment is that maybe there's this thing where we hide ourselves with the Judgment card. We hide because there is maybe it's not even fear of being exposed. Maybe it's like not even knowing what the authentic self or way of being is. I think so often that can happen, especially um, when we either have a lot of expectations, especially from a very early age, or we've been indoctrinated into this is how things are. And so we want to be good and comply and all of that good stuff. It's like then we lose this ability to even feel what our own authentic self is. And this is the Judgment card. And then there is this process of exploring that, of being curious about that. What is it that I like and enjoy? And that process is not always like it's not always a linear process. It's very Pisces in a way. It's kind of this like seeing what feels good and like, oh, that I like that. No, I don't like that. And kind of like feeling it out. And it's very, you know, like being an adolescent is messy and, you kind of try different things on and see what works. And then as you do that, there is this process of cohesion that happens where there is a strengthening of the self. There is a strengthening of the emotional body and the core of the self. And so um I realize that may sound kind of like heavy and serious for just 1 week because we are just talking about 1 week, but I also wonder if that is maybe um, something that comes up that you want to continue to explore again, because things like this, we could do over a lifetime. So that is what I have to say about that. That is your weekly forecast. Thank you so much for being here. Just a reminder that my name is Shawna McGrath. If we haven't met yet, I'm a depth psychotherapist and an astrologer. Um, I offer depth-oriented psychotherapy and astrological counseling. If you want to find out more about me and my work, you can find that on my website, theastropsyche.com. And also, I'm really excited to share that I'm offering a new psychotherapy group that will coincide with eclipse season to help you make the most of this transformational pocket of astrology. And so you can find out more about that on my website as well. That starts March 12th is when we start that 8-week therapy group. I'm wishing you a wonderful week and sending you lots of love. I will see you soon. Take care.